What's up, everybody? Good morning, Philly with John Marks on PHLY. Good morning if you're watching live on YouTube. Good Thursday morning to everybody out there. Chilly day. I think everybody's ready for a little bit of warm weather coming up here. As always, brought to you by Bet Parks and Central City Toyota. As we have a lot to get to today, time is short. The Eagles made their offensive coordinator hire. And, listen, Philly with John Marks, Tyler Zulli, we had the correct read on the situation. It came as no surprise yesterday that Kevin Patullo was named the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, especially after Nussmeier got hired down in New Orleans as their offensive coordinator. And I put that on social media after Nussmeier had gotten hired, and some people said, well, what does one have to do with the other? Well, here's what it had to do with. The fact that Nussmeier got that job meant that Patullo wasn't going down. My read on the situation, Tyler's read on the situation, I think we saw that, hey, they're obviously interested in bringing him down there. He wouldn't be calling plays. If he stays up here, he's calling plays. So I think that they were leveraging, Patullo's camp was leveraging the Saints job, saying, hey, listen, he's gonna take an offensive coordinator job. He'll go down there. If you want to hire him up here, then hire him up here. So the Eagles hired him. And I think that's what pretty much they thought they were going to do since Kellen Moore took the job down in New Orleans. That was the most likely scenario. They really didn't interview anybody. That's what was going to happen. If you remember with Brian Johnson, didn't the same thing kind of happen where it was pretty well known that if Johnson didn't get the offensive coordinator job, he was going to leave because he was going to get an offensive coordinator job somewhere. So the Eagles said, all right, you're our offensive coordinator, right? So it didn't come to a surprise I don't think at all to me, but it shouldn't have come as much of a surprise to anybody out there. And let's be honest, history has not been great when you look at recent replacements at offensive coordinator after the Eagles reached the Super Bowl. Mike Groh, after they won it, he was here for 2 years. That was not great. And then Brian Johnson gone after a year. And kind of disasters. Mike Groh was a disaster. Brian Johnson was a disaster. So I get it, right? I am kind of confused with the extreme negativity from fans. Like I said, I understand that the last time that they did this, they hired an inexperienced offensive coordinator that didn't have experience calling plays. And what happened? Well, the team did start out 10-1. But the season totally fell apart. The reporting afterwards was Nick Sirianni, his hands were too involved. He was meddling. He was messing around. Maybe that's why the offense wasn't good. Jalen Hurts didn't like any of this stuff or whatever. So I get it. And I even initially had that thought too. Hey, I want an experienced offensive coordinator in here. I don't need a guy without experience, right? That was my first initial reaction to it. And I'm not even telling you that I don't necessarily still feel that way in part. Right? I don't get the extreme negativity from fans, though, regarding this hire. First of all, you have no friggin' idea if Kevin Patullo or Kevin Patullo, what he is doing internally inside the Eagles organization. If he's qualified to be a candidate, if everybody thinks that, wow, he's a really sharp guy, he's going to be really good. We have no idea. The only thing we're doing is we're looking at the Brian Johnson promotion, which everybody loved at the time, by the way. I didn't hear many people saying, don't hire Brian Johnson. That everybody loved at the time. Fans loved at the time. It didn't work out. That's what we're going back to. And it's understandable. It's part of the reason why my initial reaction was that as well. But I have no idea. I saw fans on social media. I heard fans say this all over the place. Oh, well, losing Nussmeier is a big deal. Or who was the backup off of the assistant offensive line coach? Whoever that guy was that went down to the Saints. I saw a number of people, the Twitter fan reporters that were like, man, that's a huge loss to the organization.
It was TJ Paganetti.
There you go. I'll let you say his name, not me. And maybe it is. Maybe he'll be missed. And I'm not saying he wasn't a good coach or whatever. But my ass, that you have any idea internally how important a coach he was, or if it's going to be a really big loss or anything else. You don't know any more than I do. And I'm not sitting here that I'm going to tell you that it is, right? We bring reporters, we bring on experts to say hey, it's a big loss or it's not a big loss. And I've seen the reporters say that it's a loss. It's definitely a loss, experienced coaches. But when you have a good organization and you win Super Bowls, and the Eagles are one of the elite organization, not only in the National Football League, but also in sports, this is something you're going to have to deal with year in and year out. I don't understand the extreme negativity. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. The Eagles were in a Super Bowl 2 of 3 years. The Eagles have won 2 Super Bowls in 8 seasons. At what point do they deserve the benefit of the doubt? At what point does Nick Sirianni deserve the benefit of the doubt? One thing that's warmed my heart over the last couple of weeks is how Eagles fans have rallied around Jalen Hurts. From what the idiots in the media are saying, from the hot takers and their takes, even after the Super Bowl where people are still saying, like, oh, well, Jalen, he still isn't a good quarterback, right? Eagles fans have rallied around that and now have Jalen's back. Why not the same thing with Nick Sirianni? Nick Sirianni has been the head coach of the Eagles for 4 years. He's made the playoffs every year, and he's been to 2 Super Bowls, and he's just won a championship where they were winning 34-0 in the third quarter, right? I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people why Nick Sirianni is successful at being the Eagles head coach, but he is. Something that he's doing is working. So when you're having success like that, maybe Howie wanted to look outside the organization. Maybe Jeffrey Lurie said, hey, should we look at an external candidate? Look how it worked out with Kellen Moore. Maybe they're not saying that at all. Or maybe they're saying, I'm going to defer to Nick here. Like, Nick's earned the right to say, hey, I want this internal candidate that is next in line. This happens all the time in the NFL. It happened with Andy Reid. It happens with good organizations. You get bumped up. So you start off, you're a quarterback's coach. You're an assistant quarterback's coach. The next year, you're the quarterback's coach. Then you're the passing game coordinator. Then you're the offensive coordinator. Then you move and you're the head coach somewhere. He is the next in line to take this job. Kellen Moore, the hire worked out fantastic. It was great. They won a Super Bowl, right? I'm just not sure who they're hiring externally that makes sense as opposed to promoting Kevin Patullo. And with this caveat, and this is something every Eagle fan out there is entitled to do based on what happened with Brian Johnson. If it doesn't work, then we're going to give the organization major crap. All right? Because you're going out on a limb and saying we're giving this guy with no play calling experience, who's now going to have to call plays, we're giving him play calling responsibilities and duties on a Super Bowl winning team. So, they're going to have to answer for it if it doesn't work, if it's a disaster like Brian Johnson. But let's face it, haven't the Eagles figured out a template for how they can win games? Let's actually hear from Kevin Patullo. This is at the Super Bowl. My buddy Chase Sr., who does a lot of digital work for Chat Sports. He's a local guy. He was actually my intern. Here's Patullo. He's being asked, you have the question in here, Tyler, or is it just the answer? Because he's being asked about, like, hey, you're obviously going to be a candidate for an offensive coordinator job here if Kellen Moore leaves. What's your philosophy on offense? Here it is.
I'm just curious from a football nerd standpoint, what is your offensive philosophy? What do you value?
So really, it first comes down to what do the players do best. I learned that as a young coach. Chan Gailey was one of my mentors, and everywhere I was with him, we kind of just did what the players did best. And then from there, you just kind of build a system around the players. I mean, there really is no set system, I don't believe. I think it's what your players do best, and you just build it from there.
Yeah, just keep it simple, stupid. You have Saquon Barkley, and you have that offensive line, run the ball. You have 2 great wide receivers, right? Excuse me. Yeah, Jalen Hurts can be a threat running. Like we saw how they can win last year. So as long as he keeps it simple and he can actually call plays, because there is a skill to calling plays, and frankly, I don't know if he can do it. I don't know. But I'm giving the Eagles the benefit of the doubt because they've earned it. And when you're one of the best run franchises in sports over the course of the last decade, you get the benefit of the doubt. And if Jalen Hurts now, we rally around him, why aren't we supporting Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman in the front office with this hire? The extreme negativity is ridiculous with this hire right now. By the way, teams make mistakes. People make mistakes. Businesses make mistakes, right? Like Brian Johnson, they were 10-1 through 11 games, and then it fell apart. So, all right, yeah, that wasn't a great hire. That sucked. It didn't end up working out. Doesn't mean that the Eagles, it wasn't a Juan Castillo type hire by Andy Reid. That was dumb, from the outset. They should have never done that. That ended up getting Andy fired. Promoting Brian Johnson to offensive coordinator, in hindsight, looked like a bad hire. I don't think it was a bad hire in the moment. I don't. This portion of the program brought to you by Glatt Hair Restoration. GlattHairMM.com, 610-980-4000. Love the hair team. Love my girls over at Glatt Hair. I'll be seeing them again next week. Tyler Zulik, thumbs up, thumbs down. Kevin Patullo as offensive coordinator. We both thought it was happening. No surprise when it came down yesterday. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, can I go thumbs middle? Because it's not this world-class exciting move, but I think it's the move that made the most sense. And it's the one that I think you and I have talked about. It's been weeks now. It was before the Super Bowl. As soon as Kellen Moore's name came up as a potential external head coaching candidate somewhere else, which I think kind of all expected, Kevin Patullo's name was the first one that you and I brought up. And the reason that you and I brought it up was continuity. And the reason that we bring up continuity is because Jalen Hurts has now had 6 offensive coordinators in the last 7 seasons. And you could date that back to his time at college, right? He went from Alabama to Oklahoma to a carousel of offensive coordinators with the Eagles over his tenure as the Eagles quarterback.
It's amazing.
And so continuity plays a massive part in this. I don't know what kind of coach Kevin Patullo is past what we read and what you read in Zach Berman's article and things like that, what Nick Sirianni says. And you take it for what it's worth from word of mouth and what the beats are telling you. I don't know what kind of coach he is, and we're not going to know until next season.
And neither are they.
And that's the thing. Neither are they until they get, he gets his hands on the playbook. He gets his hands on the schematics of things. But I do know this. I think if there was one thing that the Eagles needed desperately was some semblance of continuity from year to year on their play calling and their coaching staff. And I think internal promotion of a candidate that you already had in your building and somebody who has worked closely with your head coach and somebody who had worked closely with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I'm not telling you it's definitively going to work, but I think it gives you a floor. It gives you a baseline to build from instead of having to rebuild a playbook, instead of having to relearn all of your schematics. What's your motion like? He talked about in that clip later on, he talked about their use of motion and what he views motion as. And he uses it as a tool, right? So I think there's a baseline, there's a floor now for the Eagles coaching staff and the offensive coaching staff specifically that they can build off of. And continuity was so important, I think, this offseason.
Everybody knows him in the building, so you're not having somebody coming in from the outside and you got to get to know him or whatever. Couple other things here. My other question is, who are they hiring then? Who would they have hired? If it's Kevin Patullo, well, you got to do interviews. Why? If he's going to be the guy, you know who's out there. Again, Tyler said it perfectly. Thumbs to the middle. I don't freaking know if this guy's going to be a great play caller. By the way, let me just point this out. For everybody out there that's saying, oh, Frank Reich. Oh, Frank Reich. Do you know Jeffrey Lurie wanted Frank Reich fired after the 2016 season? Isn't that well documented? Frank Reich wasn't looked at as this generational offensive coordinator, and then they won the Super Bowl. Now everybody, oh, Frank Reich. Frank Reich has left Philadelphia and fallen on his friggin' face. Right? So enough with Frank Reich. And I like Frank Reich. And if he wants to come in and be the senior offensive assistant or whatever, awesome. I love Frank Reich. I'm not trying to crap on him. But come on, give me who are they hiring? Seriously, who are they hiring? Do they have to go through the interviewing process? Man, if they wanted to go interview candidates, I would have been fine with that.
And I think somebody made a good point in the chat. I think it was Michael Harris made a point in the chat. You are behind in the hiring process because of the fact that you won the Super Bowl. So you're never going to get the premier candidate. And quite frankly, John, I don't know. Was there a premier candidate for offensive coordinator this year? Was there a guy that's like, man, that's everybody's radar number one type of guy? So you're behind the 8 ball to begin with. And when, you're not having a slam dunk home run type of candidate, I think internal makes sense in this regard.
It's kind of how it works. The reason why Kellen Moore was hired was because Brian Johnson, that didn't work out. So now they're saying all right, we need to go outside the organization and find somebody. By the way, and I saw somebody else put this in our YouTube chat. Nick Sirianni obviously learned a lot from that season. Right? Look how he rebuilt his relationship with Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jesus Christ, they just won the Super Bowl. Give Nick Sirianni some credit. Give him the benefit of the doubt, for God's sakes. The team just won the Super Bowl. What are we doing? It's a great organization. What are we doing? All right, so this is from Jeff. I'm going to read from a couple beats. Jeff McClain said this is from a tweet. He says he was the leading candidate once the team knew that Kellen Moore was likely to leave for the Saints head coach job, which was, after the championship game, they knew he was gone. So they're looking ahead. They know that there's a pretty good chance that Kellen Moore is going to get that job. So probably immediately they thought, like, he's probably going to be the guy, right? He's been Nick Sirianni's right-hand man for years. And actually, he took Patullo's job in Kansas City. Patullo left with Chan Gailey to go to another job. Sirianni came in and took his job. So Patullo actually is more experienced than he does, but they've been close since then. And there was a lot of support. And again, this is coming from Jeff McClain. So he's getting this internally from inside the Eagles. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But it says that he got support from assistants, players, and staffers. And I've read some people on the record saying that. You mentioned continuity, Tyler. He's never called plays, but he's been involved in the process on game days and has handled the duties before in practice settings. Scheme and terminology is expected to stay the same. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So Sirianni said in September that one of Patullo's roles in the staff was to call Sirianni out if he's, quote, acting like an a-hole. And I didn't say the whole word because I can't on here. The two aren't always in lockstep, despite a tight friendship that included time as neighbors in Indianapolis. Patullo suggested the head coach can be a, quote, lonely spot if there aren't people on the staff who can challenge him and hold spirited discussions. That's been Patullo. He now gets to oversee the offense, and he'll push back on the idea that Sirianni will pull the strings. Quote from Patullo, he challenges me and I challenge him, to be honest. It's why I am who I am today, because I'm honest with him and he's honest with me, and I appreciate that, because I don't think a lot of people are. And you can coach for a long time, and people won't tell you what you need to work on or what you're good at, and keep doing that. And sometimes we don't know that until it's too late. It's a great freaking comment from Patullo. Working in radio for so long, I've had one program director that actually came to me and said, you're not very good at doing this, and you're not very good at this, and you need to do this, or it's not going to work out for you. Spike Eskin told me that. I worked for Matt Nahagian for a decade at 97.5 The Fanatic, and we are very close, and he's a great friend of mine. He did not challenge me with criticism. Spike Eskin did, and I improved. I did. And constructive criticism, honest criticism in a job like this or a job like that is very important. All right, and I'm going to read from that was from Zach, right?
Correct. Yes.
Zach Berman has something up here on allphly.com. Is amazing stuff. It's an amazing article on Patullo and everything that's going on with the hire, and everybody should go check it out for sure.
You bring up the constructive criticism thing, and I'll pull back the curtain here a little bit for our show. You and I have a pretty good rapport, and I think we're in lockstep with things a lot of times. But if there's something that me as a producer does that you don't like, I have to fix that, right? If there's something that you do as a host that I say, hey, as your producer, I think you should do this, we work on that, right? And that's how we grow as a show. There's been times where, like, there was some, I'll give you an example. There was a couple weeks ago, I forgot to do something as the producer, and you brought it up to me and said, hey, we need to get better at this. And I think our communication line has gotten better. Yeah. And it's improved our show. And that's how, when you're in a front-facing role, like coaching or like entertainment like we are, you have to be available for constructive criticism. You have to be available for the partner that you work with on your show or in the game or in the coaching room to say, hey, here's how I think we grow. Here's how I think we get better. And it's not a slight. You know, when you brought up that conversation piece to me, you weren't saying, hey, Tyler, you suck at your job. You were saying, hey, here's how we get better. And we've improved on it, right? And our communication, line of communication has gotten better. And that's how you grow as a team. That's how you grow as a tandem. And that's the only way that your show, your coaching staff, your team gets better. And I think that open line of communication is so important to be able to check each other because, yeah, you're friends and, yeah, you enjoy working with each other. But there's sometimes where you just simply disagree on the process or the processes of how you do your job. And so you come together and you say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what you're thinking. Let's find a good balance of the two and make the best product we possibly can.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, I mean, otherwise it's not going to work, right? Otherwise it's not going to work. And it's like that with this. So one other nugget here, and then we'll move on to other important things. One nugget, and this is from, I forget it. This might have been Zach as well. One nugget on the Patullo-Sirianni relationship. In September, the Eagles were playing in New Orleans. The same weekend, LSU had a home game. Doug Nussmeier's son, who he just left for New Orleans, is LSU's starting quarterback. The staff wanted Nussmeier to go to the game, but he didn't want to bring it up to Sirianni. And Patullo pushed for Nussmeier to bring it up in a meeting. It was like, no, go. Like, go. This is important to you. We support you or whatever. And he did, and he went to the game. So, like, now his role's changed. His change isn't to be, like, he has stepped up. So now he's not the guy that, like, now someone's going to need to step into his role. His role's going to change. It's going to change with the players. It's going to change with the staff. So, but it's, I like seeing these kinds of stories because, like, I don't think Kevin Patullo, he's going to be Sean McVay with his scheme or whatever, because he probably would have been hired as an offensive coordinator before that or whatever. It doesn't matter. What we learned with this team is you don't need to be this friggin' offensive genius and scheme guys open and everything else. It'd be nice, but what they're doing right now is working. And again, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and one thing you brought up that I think is important that maybe we overlook, because when you think of coaches, you think head coach, like hierarchy, you go head coach, OC, DC, and then you kind of like trickle away from the smaller coaches, right? The positional coaches, the quality control coaches and things like that. Backfilling positions can be just as important, right? Because as you just brought up, you're losing a guy in Kevin Patullo who maybe has the ability to push the coaching staff, to push Nick Sirianni in that direction and to challenge those guys in a way that's constructive for the team. How do you backfill Patullo's position now? How do you backfill Paganetti's position now? That can be equally as important. And I know they're not the front-facing, talk to the media offensive coordinator, but that could be just as important to backfill those other positions.
Yeah, I agree. All right, coming up, Adam Schefter went on The Fanatic yesterday, and did he really say something? What did he really say about Mekhi Becton coming back? Did he really say anything? I don't think he did. The cap also is going up. We'll talk about that. We have the Four Nations final coming up tonight. Man, USA, USA. Do we boo the Canadian national anthem to get back at Canada for booing the United States national anthem? I don't know. We have that coming up. Bunch of other stuff as well. Philly. Back after this. Don't go anywhere. All right, there we go. Listen, TrueMark Financial. Oh, man. I love TrueMark. My neighborhood federal credit union. I was on the app yesterday. I'm looking at my business checking. I'm looking at my business savings. I'm looking at my savings account. I transferred a little bit of money. I transferred some over to savings from the business checking account. It's a great app. TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Can't say enough about them. And right now, you still have time. Just a little bit over a week. If you have that big balance on your credit card that you say, hey, I don't have the money right now to pay the full balance. If you don't, you know what happens? Interest. And most of the times, these credit cards, you're talking about APR that's at 28, 29, 25%. You know what happens? You get that next credit card statement and you're like, oh, wow, like a couple $100, right? So don't do that. Do this. TrueMark Financial is offering 0 interest on balance transfers for 12 months. So all your payments can go towards reducing your balance, not just covering interest. Transfer your existing balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card to take advantage of this amazing offer. Get in by February 28th, 2025. Visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details. And to apply today, TrueMark Financial, federally insured by NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fee applies. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate. Hooah. All right. Glad hair restoration. I don't know if Tyler has any of the before and after pictures loaded up because I'm tired of talking about glad hair restoration. GladHairMM.com. Look at that, man. Keep that up on the screen too. Look at that hairline, brother. That's I believe 12 years ago. Got a Matt Ryan charity event. Look at the front of the hair right here. Right? Well, I'm not even up on the screen. But look at how it's going back, right? Like, it's not horrible, but it was enough to where I shaved my head because I hated it. Now look at it on the look at the after picture. If you're listening to the podcast, the audio podcast, you can't see it. The before and after pictures says it all. I don't really need to say anything other than that, right? Those pictures are taken a decade apart. Imagine what my hair would look like today if you look at the before picture, which was taken 12 years ago. I think you know what it would look like today. My head would be shaved. I probably have it shaved all the way down. Glad hair restoration. I can't say anything else about them. If you want your hair back, you want to shave your head, you don't mind what it looks like? Awesome. I don't care what you do with your hair. What I'm saying is that if you're looking to get your hair back or you're looking to keep your hair, there's one place to go. Glad hair restoration. I talk about the algorithm I'm in on Instagram. I'm in the hair algorithm, and there's this new one out there. It's this shampoo. And it's like, yeah, look at this. The guy shaved, like, it's shampoo and it grows your hair back. But there's never a before and after picture like I just showed you. You know why? Because there is no before and after picture. There's no shampoo out there that's regrowing your hair. This is my hair. This is my hair. You want to stop the shedding. You want to stop the balding. Hair restoration, laser light therapy, PRP and stem cell restoration. There's maintenance. There's restoration. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Glad Hair is not just about restoration. It's about innovation. Call them today. You can speak to their hair team. Jen, Cheryl, Lisa can answer any of your questions. Tell them that you hear me talking about them all the time. 610-980-4000. 610-980-4000. Operators are standing by. Just like to say that. GlatzHairMM.com. G-L-A-T hairmm.com. Hooah. All right. By the way, I'm not booing the Canadian national anthem. I was kidding because they were booing because of tariffs and things like that. We'll talk about that coming up later on in the show because that's tonight. And that's like a lot of buzz with this hockey game, man. I'm going to be glued to it tonight. You kidding me? Jason Tatum, the Sixers and the Celtics tonight. Jason Tatum was at the Roman Catholic game last night. Did you see this?
Yeah, buddy. How about Judge going to the PCL championship?
How about that?
Yeah, that's
so. Are you into that being a Judge guy?
Not particularly, but you get excited when your alma mater does something like that.
But those games are huge.
Oh, for sure. The Palestra's that's a huge deal in Philly. I mean, the Palestra was packed last night.
Well, they always are. I have my insurance agent is who won last year?
I think Roman may have.
No, I don't. He didn't go to Roman. He's a Northeast guy. Anyway, wherever he went, he was there last year because I remember seeing his Instagram stuff. And dude, like that place is juiced. Anyway, Jason Tatum walks in last night, which I thought was really really cool. Now that he got a chant of F the Celtics, which is awesome. But like you're in town, you're playing the Sixers tonight, so you have an off night last night. And it's like, well, what do you do? The fact that he's going to watch a high school game at the Palestra, like I'm just telling you, if you've never seen a basketball game in the Palestra, man, go see a basketball game in the Palestra. Go see a high school game in the Palestra, man. Unbelievable. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool to see Jason Tatum last night down there watching the semis. All right, so yeah, Sixers and Celtics tonight. That's all I will talk about with the Sixers on today's show because I have more important things to talk about. Like Adam Schefter. So he goes on with John Kincaid and Andrew Shalchunas yesterday. He does a weekly spot with them. And like a lot of times he says something, you put it up on Twitter, it gets a lot of it's a good segment for the guys. He says the following yesterday, and hold on, I gotta get back to it here or whatever. So obviously he's being asked about the free agency or whatever. Mekhi Becton gets brought up. He says, quote, "Now, could there be a team out there that throws silly money at him and makes it a moot point? Absolutely. That's what free agency is about. But I think he's smart enough after what he went through in New York and what he went through in Philadelphia this year to recognize, you know what? This is pretty good. I'm in a great spot with a great line and a great coach. Let's continue this. I might not get quite as much as I want I might not get quite as much as I might in another city, but it's going to be more valuable and beneficial for me to be here. So I think there's a real chance that he winds up staying." So what I saw, I didn't see any of this other stuff. What I saw was, quote, "So I think there's a real chance that he winds up staying." So I want to examine that exact point before we go back to the other stuff. So I think there's a real chance that he winds up staying. Tyler, so I think there's a chance he winds up staying. What exactly is he saying by saying that?
He's speculating that he thinks that maybe he returns, which theoretically, sure, yeah, maybe he returns.
He didn't even say there's a real chance.
Correct.
He said, I think there's a real chance.
Correct. He is giving his opinion on what he believes, and that's kind of what we do, right? We give our opinions with intelligent thought process behind it, but that feels like it's an opinion to him, and listen, he's as locked in as anybody in the NFL, but that to me feels like more of an opinion statement or an opinion than a statement.
Yeah, so and then we'll circle back to here because if I said I think there's a chance he winds up staying, I do think there's a chance he winds up staying. A real chance? So let's circle back to what he originally said, which is if somebody throws silly money at him, then this isn't even a discussion. So let's be very clear with this, all right? And I think Adam Schefter's full of crap, regardless. But like, let's say somebody offers him $4 years and $40 million. okay, which is what's projected out there. I don't know if that's actually going to be what happens or whatever. The Eagles aren't signing him for anywhere close to 4 years and $40 million, nor should they. I like Mekhi Becton. I'm not signing him to that. They shouldn't sign him to that. You get somebody else to play right guard. Find the next Mekhi Becton, draft somebody, all right? Now, if the market's not out there for him, and maybe it's like a 2-year, $16 million contract, and Howie says, we'll give you 2 for 14 and give you $10 million guaranteed. I think that's unlikely because he's going to have a bigger market. But let's say that it's something like that. That's where there's a chance he stays. I don't think that's likely. I think a team is going to value him. Starting left guards in the NFL, if you go back, and we've talked about this on the freaking show multiple times, they're making double-digit $1 million a year. They're making $25 million guaranteed. And these are guys, honestly, if you go back and look at the names, I never heard of them before I went back and I looked. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, he signed a $40 million contract, a $50 million contract with Carolina, a $50 million contract with this team. Never even heard of them. Not that they're not good players. Mekhi Becton's a good player. But I like just cherry picking a quote that says, so I think there's a real chance that he winds up staying here. He's not saying anything at all because there is a chance that he stays. If he doesn't have a market, if he's a market, he's not staying. So let's just realize and have realistic expectations. If the market's soft on him, I think that there's a real chance he comes back. How about that?
Here's what kind of is holding me up. It's more than just the I think versus I know versus I feel type of conversation. If you just for fun, Google Mekhi Becton contract projections. I have 3 different websites here that use 3 different projective sites. Bleacher Report says the Eagles could offer him 4 years and $56 million. Twitter says 4 years and $36 million, where Spotrac says 4 years and $41 million. The discrepancy between $36 million and $41 million and $56 million is so substantial, John, that no one has any idea what his market value is going. That's what that tells me, is nobody has any idea what the upper echelon and the lowest threshold that he is going to get offered. If it's 4 for 36, I think the Eagles are in play. If it's 4 for 56, I think there's no chance the Eagles are in play.
Agreed, disagree, and agree. Yeah, they're not gonna. If somebody overpays them, there's no chance. I just look at the position as a revolving door position. You're drafting, or you're signing a veteran, or you're doing both, and you're finding out who your starter is. When you have 4 all pro caliber players, you don't need to pay a guy that much money.
So let me ask you, are you comfortable with, if the Eagles said to you today, Tyler Steen's our starting right guard next year, are you comfortable with it?
If they bring in a veteran to compete, or they draft another guy relatively high, yes, I am. I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yep. Are they as good? Probably not. And I can see the Eagles having more value for Becton than what I'm saying, because they see his value in the running game. And I was streaming last night with Delco Steve, and he brought up how good he is in the run. And then a couple images came to my mind, in particular in the game against the Rams, where he got in a little bit of space, and he took this long-haired linebacker for the Rams, and he rag-tossed him, brother. He threw him like 5 feet in the air and then out. And it's like, wow, that's a big dude. That's a big athletic dude. So, all right, like maybe the Eagles look at him in the run game and say, man, like he's a game changer. We know how big that offensive line was. I just can't see him paying market value from Mekhi Becton. I just can't. So we'll see how it plays out. I hope the dude gets a bag. I hope that he gets it. I hope the Eagles sign him. Like, I'm not even saying I don't want him to be re-signed. I just don't think it's going to happen, and I wouldn't re-sign him if I was the Eagles. All right, the salary cap's also rising by an estimated $22 to $26 million. The league notified teams yesterday, which now you can see, like, all right, how much are the Eagles going to have with the cap? How much money will they have to spend or whatever? And I saw a lot of people, a lot of the Twitter reporters that were like, okay, well, now they have this much money. And then it was like, well, they don't have to actually have this much money because, well, if they could have more if Slay or Bradbury, like whatever the case may be. I'm going to make it real simple because like I am a keep it simple, stupid type person. My first novel, Tyler, when I write it, it's going to be in crayon and it's going to be 3 pages. That's it. Not going to be a lot of words on the pages. I don't have this ego where I need to write my memoirs or whatever. My memoirs, my memories are
gonna
gone.
draw a couple stick figures and that's it.
Some stickers. Yes, like when my daughter writes a book. Stickers, stick figures, Jimmy Kempski stick fingers, stickers. And yes, so that would be me. Here's the thing, and Eagles fans, just keep this in mind when you're worrying about crunching cap numbers and can they sign this guy? Can they sign this guy? The Eagles can resign any of their players that they want to. Doesn't mean they will and doesn't mean that they should. The Eagles can sign anybody in free agency that they want to. Doesn't mean that they will or doesn't mean that they should. The Eagles could trade for Myles Garrett. I don't think they will, and sign him to a new contract. Do you know why? I think this is well documented at this point. Stop paying attention to the salary cap. Howie Roseman cooks the contracts. Everything's backloaded. These friggin' void years, the void years are there so they can just suck up those cap numbers and you kick it into the future, to kick the can down the road. So you can sign a guy for, let's say they want to bring back Milton Williams and they want to give him $50 million. You can have the cap hit for $5 million this year. You can have the cap hit for $10 million next year. And then you can have the cap hit for year 4 at $30 million, right? You know what I mean? Like, you structure the contract however you want to structure the contract. And then you redo the deal and you give them new money up front. This feels like a broken record that we keep saying over and over and over again. So when you're seeing people on social media or your friends are telling you like, oh, well, they don't have enough cap space, or, oh, look at all the cap space they have. When was the last time the Eagles didn't sign a player that they wanted to re-sign? When was the last time they said, oh, man, too far up against the cap? After the strike, the COVID season, because the cap went down and they really had to kind of get back into financial positivity. Like that year, they probably said, hey, we need to take a step back. But the Eagles have never cried poor and have never said we can't afford or we can't do this because of the cap. because they spend money and they put it up front and they cook the contracts. So don't worry about cap space. It's great that the cap's going up. It's going to go up every year because the NFL just prints freaking money. Netflix now wants in on the new television contracts when they get re-upped, which is, I think the NFL can rip them up in like 2028 or 2029. So now you can expect to have Netflix outbidding everybody, to have regular like CBS or Fox trying to bid up against those guys to have regular Sunday games. So yet when Howie's signing these contracts, when Jeffrey Lurie's signing these contracts, the cap goes up every year, and it's going up $20 to $26 million. So Eagles cap strategy, again, as long as they keep drafting players that can play, everything else takes care of itself. When when the Eagles were in cap hell, or when they were having problems, when their drafts sucked. 2020, 2017, 2018, 2019. Bad drafts. Guess what happens? You don't have young replacements. So now you have to go out in free agency and you have to try to buy starters. The Eagles don't have to buy starters right now. All their draft picks worked out. Milton Williams was making third-round money. Think about this. Milton Williams was made third-round draft pick money this year, had 2 freaking sacks in the Super Bowl. Cooper DeJean, second-round draft pick money, had a pick 6 in the Super Bowl. Josh Sweat took a pay cut to come back this year, 2.5 sacks. Jalen Carter, that's how you do it, man. Pay a lot of money to the offensive players. The defensive players aren't making any money. Bam.
Like you brought up, when you have to worry about this is when your draft is Andre Dillard, Miles Sanders, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Sharif Miller, and Clayton Thorson. When you don't have to worry about it? When your draft is Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt, and, you'll see what happens with some of the other guys. But those 3 just immediately prove to be 2 starters and a rotational piece who's only going to continue to get better as he gets more into his NFL career.
I was looking at it last night, and I went through all these drafts, and it's Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams. The rest of that draft has Kenny Gainwell, which is a good 5th-round draft pick. But if you can draft Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, and Milton Williams in the 2021 draft, like Pro Bowl caliber starting wide receiver, Pro Bowl, Landon Dickerson's been in the Pro Bowl 3 times. Milton Williams is going to get a Brinks truck and had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl. Your top 3 picks in a draft. That's how you win a Super Bowl, man.
If you can come, because every year you don't have 7, right? There's 7 rounds, but sometimes you have 2 2s or 3 4s, or you don't have a 4, whatever. If you can come away with 2 starters a year for a 4 or 5 year stretch like the Eagles are starting to build on,
you're set.
That's substantial. I mean, that's significant to come away with 2 starters and a rotation piece, or a starter and a third edge or something like that. That means something to the depth and continuity of your team.
Yeah, the only player left from the 2020 draft is Jalen Hurts. Safe to say that was a good pick right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking about guys like Davion Taylor that year.
Bad draft pick. 2021, Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, Nakobe Dean. 3 starters, bam. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Tyler Steen. Bam. Tanner McKee in the 6th round. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt. Bam. Super Bowl. All right, coming back. We'll get a little Phillies talk, but also the Four Nations final. USA hosting Canada. We'll give you the odds on that. Also, the NBA All-Star Game, compared to the viewers from the last time the USA and Canada played in this Four Nations exhibition. We'll tell you about that. Ratings aren't good for the NBA All-Star Game. That's all coming up. Philly, John Marks, PHLY, 2-2. We're back. Rothman Orthopedics. Man, I'm so grateful. And this is really a lesson learned and a lesson for everybody out there. If you're in pain and it's not like if you have an injury or you need a hip replacement or a knee replacement, ankle replacement, like you should go to Rothman for anything that's going on with orthopedics, right? And that's because they have a doc that specializes in everything that they do, right? So if it's a back, knee, hand, elbow, they have a doctor that is specialized and laser focused for whatever it is, spine. Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in you. But I'm going to give a push on this show because this is what happened with me. I had a bad shoulder for over a year. I did nothing about it. I said, well, I'm going to Google, how do I get rid of it? What's wrong with me? It's going to go away. It didn't go away. I was not wanting an MRI. I was not wanting to be told I had a torn rotator cuff. Well, I didn't. I had a frozen shoulder. I went to Rothman Orthopedics, and in one office visit, no MRI, no X-ray, nothing like that, an examination. You have a frozen shoulder. Here's what we're doing. You want a cortisone shot? I'm like, no, I don't want a cortisone shot. Like, okay, physical therapy, 6 weeks. If it doesn't improve by then, come back and see us. I went to physical therapy at Rothman because they offer physical therapy right there in Limerick where I went. And after 6 weeks of physical therapy, boom. Discharge, shoulder's been great. And I wish I would have done it sooner because like it was really that easy. And it felt great. It felt great getting in there and taking care of it. So if that's going on with you, if you're active, you run, but you don't run anymore because your knee bothers you. You play golf, pickleball, like whatever it is, basketball, but afterwards your body's killing you. So you don't do it anymore, or you don't do it as much anymore, or you pay for it after you do. You don't have to do that. I'm telling you. Rothman can take care of it for you. Specializing in orthopedics and you. Over 30, just in this area right here, 30 great different offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. Full spectrum of orthopedic care. This is x-rays, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today. And tell them Johnny Mark sent you. Hooah. There you go. All right, well, let's get to what do we have coming up here right now? We have, Ace is the place for pathetic guys like me that can't repair, that can't. I'll say this, and like, let me give myself a pat on the back. I needed to change the air conditioning filter, or the HVAC filter. I'm supposed to do it every 3 months. I put an alert on my calendar so I know when the 3 months is up. That usually means a month later I do it, and that's what I did. But I got it open, put it in there. It made me feel good that I at least could accomplish something. But what do you do if something goes wrong? What if the heater's not working? What if the air conditioner's not working? What if you need seasonal maintenance, right? Like I know with me, I have my guy that comes every, like before summer and before winter, right? To make sure it's working right. Ace Hardware Home Services. From plumbing to heating to cooling, trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. So they want to listen to your goals and say, hey, what can we do for you? A wide range of residential maintenance, installation, and home repair services are available. That includes plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. Free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with trusted advisors and options that are best suited for your home and budget. Emergency services. Something goes wrong on the weekends or after hours. What do you do? Ace Hardware Home Services. Service you can trust. Satisfaction is guaranteed. They will make it right no matter what. Visit acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. Hooah. All right, there we go. So, Tyler, will you be locked and loaded into the Four Nations finals tonight? It's in Boston. USA against Canada.
I forgot about that commercial. Your cousin from Boston?
Your cousin from Boston.
Yeah, actually, I think I will be.
Me too.
I think I didn't know how much interest I was going to have in it because it just felt like it was going to be, exhibition style, replacement for the All-Star game. And then that Saturday night, I was sitting around. I wasn't doing much, and we put the baby to bed. And I turned it on, and I went, "Oh my God, this is real hockey! Like this is legit. Like this means something." So
I found it by accident too.
I'm really excited for tonight because it's a rematch. It's the game we all expected, right? No disrespect to Finland and Sweden, but these are the two best teams in this Four Nations tournament. These are the two teams we expected to be here. They don't particularly like each other. It's been pretty clear in the way that they were physical and throwing the bodies around. I think this is going to be a really fun game tonight.
For an exhibition, I heard some players saying that this was more important to them than winning a Stanley Cup, which I find insane because it is an exhibition.
Yeah, so that one's a little bit much. Like if you said, hey, an Olympic gold is more important than the Stanley Cup, totally get it.
Okay.
Because playing for your country in the Olympics is a huge deal for a lot of people. To say this one may be a little bit of an exaggeration,
but ridiculous.
But I think that, putting on the jersey with your country's name across your chest, I think it means something to a lot of players.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, I may think it's ridiculous that they think that, but if they're playing a game like this is the biggest game of their life, isn't that good for us, the viewers? That they're
sure.
And that's the way that the first game was. They were fighting with it. There were 3 fights within the first 15 seconds of the game.
Yep. Throwing bodies along the glass. I mean, just heavy hits. It was legit. It was a full contact game. There was nothing exhibition about that game.
So the game's in Boston. And I was going to go to the Game Time app, but I'm not going to worry about it now because I did it earlier. The get-in price is $1,000, and that's all the way up top. $1,000. This is an exhibition, but this definitely has taken on like a very personal meaning, I think, for these players. I don't know if people from Canada are coming across the border and pushing the price up. Regardless, Canada is favored in the game, Tyler Zulli. A slight favors, -115. It's pretty much a pick 'em. This is the money line. Canada's -115. This is on the BetParks app. And USA -106. So a little bit of a lean on the line towards Canada just because they are in Boston. But so this game, the first game that they played on ESPN, and was that Saturday or Friday night? Was that Saturday night?
The game against Canada?
Yeah.
Was Saturday night.
It was Saturday night.
Yeah.
I know that it was Saturday. So it was on ESPN. It had 4.4 million viewers. 4.4 million, which is huge for a hockey game. That was the biggest, I think, since the 2019 Stanley Cup game or something. So the NBA ratings came out for the All-Star game. This was from Front Office Sports. So keep in mind, USA-Canada game, 4.4 million viewers. How many viewers watched the NBA All-Star game? Which is the NBA. Was that on ESPN or was that on ABC? I'm going to Google it real fast.
Same parent company, so right. They're both.
If it's on one of the broadcasting ones, it's going to get more viewers.
Oh, right. Your local 3, 6, 10 channels, right?
It's going to get more. Yes. Maybe it was on both. How many? 4.4. How many for that?
I mean, the NBA dominates, but it's the ratings were bad this year.
It was okay. So it was on TNT. So
okay.
It was on TNT. Go ahead.
I mean, I know the NBA dominates. I would say it's probably a little bit more, but it's probably closer than it's ever been. I would say maybe the NBA hit 5 and some change.
You're a smart dude. It's not 5 and change. It's 4.6 million. So it's close.
So low for the NBA All-Star game.
It's the second lowest ever. And it's the third straight year they haven't averaged at least 6 million viewers. And before they've never been below 6 million viewers in their history. So, and guess what? Do you know why? Because it sucks.
Because the format's stupid?
It's like we can be like I'll give you an example for us, right? Like we work in the media. We work in sports, right? We're supposed to talk about games that are going on or whatever. And I have never, ever, ever been the fake radio or fake broadcasting guy that pretends that he watches something that he doesn't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I watch every Flyers game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have any interest in watching any 76ers game anymore. I will. I'll tune in. I'm not making appointment television unless something happens to go and watch the Sixers game this year. I'm not. I have a life. I have a busy life. I have kids that have friggin' activities all the time. I pay attention to what goes on with the team. I check in. I watch the highlight shows, but I don't play fake that I watch everything. I had no interest in watching the NBA All-Star Game. I checked in on the three-point contest and the dunk contest, and it sucked. When I say checked in, I turned it on and I turned it off pretty quickly. Well, and I paid attention on social media and things like that.
I think the whole weekend, again, we talked about this maybe last week. It used to be a spectacle because the big name players were in the events. The Dwight Howard dunk contest, the Vince Carter dunk contest, Kyle Korver in the three-point competition, Peja Stojakovic in the three-point competition going back to the early 2000s. And then these games, I'm not saying they were the high-level intensity games that a playoff game would be, but at least it had some semblance of a merit to it where the lasting image, the last All-Star Game image that I really, really vividly remember in my head is Kobe with the ball in his hands. LeBron guards him one-on-one and slaps the floor. And it was like, this is a matchup of the two best players of my lifetime. Because by the time I caught up with Jordan, it was Wizards Jordan. It didn't really matter.
Two top 5 players.
These are the two best players of my lifetime going at it on a one-on-one in a grand scale. And the thing with the All-Star Game was for a long time, you didn't get to watch a lot of other teams, not just the NBA. I think MLB was a big part of this, was like you didn't watch the American League as a National League fan. You might have caught a game here and there, the Yankees or something like that. But the All-Star Game was an opportunity for fans to watch the other leagues' teams, the teams in the West Coast, their stars, and to see what those guys were really about. Now with the ability to see everybody all the time via social media and NBA Game Pass and those kind of things, I think that between that and the product just not being nearly as good with it, like no defense, all 3 points, just whatever, I think the All-Star Game, not just in the NBA, but across the board, All-Star Games have kind of floundered a little bit in the last decade or so.
No, agreed. All of them really have. The Pro Bowl. And the Pro Bowl actually, it always had decent ratings. I as a kid, I remember tuning in because I wanted to see Randall with his Eagles helmet and with the whatever. When it was in Hawaii, I feel like it had a different feeling to it. And then when they're like, no, we're going to put it in Orlando or in Las Vegas, I was like, no, you know what, this sucks. And then you want these guys after playing 16 or 17 games to go out there and tackle each other on AstroTurf? It's like, no, it's not going to happen. All-Star Game's pretty cool because it's still mid-season and pitcher against batter, you're going to you're not going to take it easy in that moment, right? In basketball, you're not out there until the fourth quarter putting out 100% effort. Anyway, whatever. So there you go. I'll be tuned in tonight. I'll be standing on my head watching it. What's the other thing? So one Phillies thing here, because we've been doing some Phillies stuff every show. Because when you have PHLY's Phillies Tyler Zulli on the program, you got to make sure you tap into that a little bit. So do you have another video on demand today and then a live show tomorrow?
We do, yes. So we'll have something up for you today at 1 and then live show for an hour tomorrow. We'll probably check in with Jim Salisbury from Clearwater tomorrow. So live show tomorrow and then, as you said, a video on demand later today.
All right, very good. So one headline we talked about, what did we talk about yesterday? Oh, the wins. Another headline that I had written down is Aidan Miller. So this is the headline. I think it was from the Inquirer. Phillies know they can't afford to play it. No, they can't afford to play it safe with Aidan Miller. Don't rule out a 2025 debut. They can't play it safe with Aidan Miller. Don't rule out a 2025 debut. He's 20 years old. He took, a big step last year. He's their number one prospect now over Andrew Painter, which I don't know if I agree with. But he's a big prospect. He is. He last year was a big year for him. He developed big time. He took that next step. He also hasn't hit a lot of pitching past double A, and he wasn't great in double A last year. He's also 20 years old, which he's not supposed to be, right? His development was great. Everybody, can we just slow down on the Aidan Miller train to Philadelphia? If he makes his debut in 2025, it means there's an injury and he is off the charts with what he did down there. I don't need to see Aidan Miller this year. Frankly, I don't want to see Aidan Miller this year because it means something would have went wrong and you need to bring up a 21-year-old to be a starter or a player. He can't be a bench player. He can't be a part-time player. He needs every day at bats.
So that's the thing. I think if you're bringing up a young player and a young high-level prospect like an Aidan Miller, there has to be an availability to play. So I think about over the last couple of years. The Braves are the prime example of if their guy's ready, they're calling them up. Think about Ozzie Albies. Think about Ronald Acuna. Think about Michael Harris. All three of those guys made their debuts at 21 or younger. James Wood for the Nationals this year, 21 when he made his debut. He looks like he's going to be a stud.
Monster. Yeah,
C.J. Abrams was 21 when he made his debut. Did he make his debut in San Diego? Regardless, he was just super young, and now he's an everyday player for the Nationals. But I think if you're going to bring up a player of that caliber, of that prospect caliber, there has to be an availability to play. Now, could he be a guy who plays a day at short, a day at third, a day at a DH, a day at second? Because he has positional flexibility. But if there's not going to be to me, at least 4 games a week at some point, you could bring him up at the end of the year to get some major league at-bats. I have no issue with that. But I'm not going to rush the kid up if he doesn't have availability to play more consistently than not. I would rather him play every day in Reading to start the year, and then if he's playing well, promote him to Lehigh Valley, in June or something like that, and still continue to play every day, as opposed to getting called up and then getting spot starts here and some pinch hit. I think that stunts his growth more than allowing him to have another year or two in the minor leagues.
Yeah, 4 days a week isn't enough for me. Moving him around is a absolute non-starter for me. I mean, at this point, he would play third base. Like the easiest path to him in the majors with the Phillies is they trade Alec Boehm after this year, and he becomes your third baseman. Because you can say we're going to move Trey Turner off of shortstop, which is fine, but then where's Bryson Stott going? Right? Like the only open hole in the infield right now is unless Boehm goes to first base, which isn't going to happen because Bryce Harper's there and he wants to play first base, is at third base. I'm not moving him around from third to short to second or whatever. He's getting 6 starts a week in Reading, and then if he's killing it in July or August, I think about moving him up to AAA. That's it. I don't want him thinking about trying to move up. Go out there. I would say you're spending a full year in Reading, and if we'll see, maybe at the end of the year you go up to AAA. Stop.
Well, and I think
stop with this whole bringing him up to the majors this year. Stop it.
You bring up the position where he's positionally going to fit, and I've said for a while I think he's a major league third baseman. The Phillies and Aidan Miller, well, the Phillies more specifically, have been very meticulous about him being an everyday shortstop.
They're keeping him there. Yep.
And I think they want him to be an everyday shortstop. I agree with you that I think the easiest path would be not this year because Boehm has one more year of arbitration, unless there's a trade that gets facilitated. You're talking about the everyday third baseman in 2027 for Aidan Miller. He'll be 22, 23 at the time. That kind of makes sense. But it seems to me the Phillies are pretty hell-bent on Miller being an everyday shortstop.
All right, so here's the question. What happened? Like, how do they make that work?
It's a great question.
By the way, Trey Turner's not going anywhere. That contract's not tradable.
No, I mean, does Trey Turner get some reps in the outfield? That's a conversation that people have had for a while. Does Trey Turner become the
left field?
Does he become the DH when Kyle Schwarber's contract is up? Listen, Trey Turner is not a good defensive shortstop right now. I say his last 2 years with the Phillies defensively have been brutal.
Shout out to everybody watching on TV. Slide on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. Yeah, you're right. He probably goes to left field /DH. Maybe play some second base. Stott's not going anywhere. Bryce Harper, the GM, probably isn't letting him go. Although you'll need to re-sign him at some point to a contract.
Well, and
the
thing with Stott is, I think he's a fine defensive shortstop. He's a much better defensive second baseman. And so I think you're making, if you're moving Stott to short, you're getting better defensively than with Trey Turner, but you're now hindering second base, and you're kind of playing this juggling act of defensively, what's our best look? And I think Bryson Stott's a good defensive shortstop. I think he's a Gold Glove winning defensive second baseman. And so I don't know if you move him off there. Plus, again, as you brought up, what's the long-term answer for Bryson Stott? I think this year tells you a lot about how they view Bryson Stott.
Yeah, man, it sure does. We'll see. I'm excited. So yeah, we'll probably try to get Jim on next week or whatever. This week was still like a lot of Super Bowl leftovers and the first wave of free agency. And we'll be talking about free agency until it starts because it's only a couple weeks away. But I get juiced up when I start looking at the Phillies down at spring training. All right, shout out to everybody that watches live on YouTube every morning. Remember, subscribe to PHLY Our subscriptions are going through the roof right now. We appreciate you. Smash the subscribe button, like and comment on the show. You watch the show live, you're commenting live, we appreciate you. You watch the show whenever, just leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Like it. Our audio podcast as well. Everybody that listens to the podcast, appreciate you. If you do want to listen, remember, wherever you find your podcasts, search Philly with John Marks, and you can listen on your way home from work, at work, whenever, on demand. Just give us a nice 5-star review. Rate and review us as well. Look out for Tyler's video on demand on PHLY Phillies today. Should be some good content. And we'll be back live tomorrow at 8 a.m. Flip over to Anthony. He is live right now. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.